Why should you invest in stocks on eToro?
With eToro, I can invest in global and local stocks.
Blood, gore, bone, tears. These are the only currencies I accept for debts owed. Your crown will make a fine addition to my collection.
Mic check, mic check. Guys, can you just confirm that you can hear me? Let me just check our live stream. All right, so one moment. So, good afternoon, online Filipino freelancers, and welcome again to our Gaming Monetized session. This is Series 4, and today we will be talking about the game Gods Unchained. But before that, for those who are tuning in for the first time on our Gaming Monetized session, um, I started this series of live sessions after the OFCON 2021 last June when we decided part of my discussion when I presented during OFCON was about monetized gaming. Then after that, a lot of people have been asking about what are those games that can be monetized. So what we did was try to reach out to the game developers or the game leads of different games. So at least every Friday or Saturday of each week, we will be featuring one game for you, so at least you can get to understand what the game is all about, and of course for you to be able to know if this particular game is something for you. But the most important aspect there is that we are able to monetize these games. Okay, but before I introduce our guests, so let me just first say some disclaimers. And of course, I'd like to say thank you. As always, this event is powered by MSI, and MSI is an official partner of the Online Filipino Freelancers. So if you have any MSI needs, may it be laptop or desktop or any of their components, so we have discounted prices in our group. So just feel free to reach out to me. We have the back end of MSI Philippines to assist us. And our disclaimer. So before I introduce our guests, let me just clarify that this session is for informational and educational purposes only. We're not going to sell you anything here. We're doing this for you to uh, to be able to get to understand the games that we will be featuring, and of course, for you to be able to decide if this is something for you. We are now living in a world of where business and pleasure can go hand in hand. That's the reason why we're having this. All right. So let me just add on our guest. So guys, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Chris Clay. He is a former game director of Wizard of the Coast, which makes the famous Magic the Gathering trading cards. For those who know what Magic is, this is something really special for me because this was the game that I have been playing my whole high school life. Me and my high school friends, from the alpha stage up until I don't recall anymore. I think Tempest was it. So I've been really addicted to Magic the Gathering cards during my high school days. So this game that is being introduced in the Metaverse is really something very interesting and special. And as I was saying, so the person that we will be joining us today now leads the team for Gods Unchained, which brings this trading card game into the metaverse. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Chris Clay, the game director of Gods Unchained. Chris,
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
thank you. So let's go on to our session. So thank you for gracing us with your time. I know you're very busy, and there's a lot of things happening right now in Gods Unchained. So it's really exciting times. But before that, can you tell us something about yourself and how you came to conceptualize Gods Unchained?
Yeah, so I would say I've had a very interesting career in games over the last 20 years. if you go all the way back in time to the start of it, my first claim to fame is I wrote the first character setup tutorial for Maya, basically working with some others to innovate in the space of just how do you make these character moves in 3D. Started my career as a technical artist and got my first game job at Turbine, creating MMOs. And at the time, it's like, wait a second, it's not just single player RPGs, but we can have hundreds of players interacting together, thousands of players in the world, and it's like, let's go explore that space. And for a lot of my career, I've been trying to follow what is at the edge of what the technology can do. Not always. Sometimes you return to loves. Magic the Gathering Arena for me, it's like I played lots of Magic Online for many years. I had said, okay, I can do better than this. This is like playing a spreadsheet, and I like my numbers to go up. I don't like to wait for my spreadsheet, but I like my numbers going up. But like, we can do better, and I'm pretty sure that we did with MTG Arena. And when I had left that, I wasn't really quite sure what I wanted to do next. I certainly wasn't necessarily looking to do another card game. But did have the founders of Immutable reach out to me and start talking to me about crypto and what it could do for gaming. And after getting my feet wet, it's like, oh my gosh, like this could fundamentally change just how games are played. Because some of my frustration with where the gaming industry had gone is sort of present in any of the terms and conditions you will find at any major corporation, and it's you are using the software for entertainment purposes only. You do not have any rights to the software. You do not have any rights to anything you have purchased or earned in the game. It's basically all ours. And for somebody who's trying to create experiences that last for decades, some of my former games are still going strong, a decade plus on. That's a hard one where players are often dumping thousands of hours into the game. And if they want something out of it, like they have to go into the black market space where they're selling their account, risking it getting hacked or lost. And even in the conversations we're having as developers, we talk a lot about trapped value. And in the systems we're creating around monetization, it's like, how do we trap value within the account? And with Gods Unchained, it was this opportunity to explore the other side of it of, can we build a game where as the game succeeds, the players of the game, succeed in that ecosystem? Can we create something that isn't just fun to play, but a place where you can actually earn the assets and gain control of them? And this is sort of that decentralized nature of it. There have been plenty of games in the past where you could earn something and trade it on a marketplace, but all of those were centralized, and ultimately the company still had control over the assets. With the blockchain, with Ethereum, with the nature of what it is, once we mint those assets, they're outside of our control, and that comes with a lot of amazing benefits. It means that we can have a vibrant marketplace outside of our own, like Token Trove, where they're optimizing it to sort of meet your consumers' needs even better than ours in some cases, which you couldn't do with a centralized exchange. And it helps me sleep at night to an extent too, knowing that because it isn't centralized, there's nobody on my team that can take away all the cards. It does bring challenges into the mix of when somebody loses access to their wallet, like there's not much we can do about it. Like it is like losing your box of Magic cards that you accidentally left your binder, in the trade hall or whatever at the local gaming shop, and it's just gone. So there's some downsides in that mix too, but. I saw Gods Unchained as an opportunity to explore the space and potentially start giving back to players in a way that the industry hasn't in the past.
Indeed. And I think if I can add on it, we're talking about Magic cards. I come to wonder now because when I relocated here in the UAE, I just recall I gave all my Magic cards to my high school classmate, and I don't know where it is right now. Imagine, I think some of the cards are still being sold, and I just saw one time that those old cards, like the alpha and beta products, are really so expensive. But the good thing about having this kind of a game, card game in the crypto universe, I mean, your market and your reach will be like global because in playing Magic cards, you're just within the vicinity on your area. I still recall that when we were playing it, we're just like we're playing against each other. We don't have access to global, even national competition at the time, so we're just playing against each other. But right now, I mean, it's so far outreach that you can literally play with anyone from anywhere in the world, right? So
Yeah, it's kind of
anyway,
crazy.
indeed. So before we proceed, I just like to say hi again to all our viewers, and don't worry for all the team replays in our community, because some of the guys really are probably still asleep now because they're having a different shift on working online. So team replays, don't worry, it will be saved within our Facebook wall so you can watch later. And I'd like to say hi to Ken Ken Sumera and the Cryptomad group. I'd really like to thank this group because, well, they're a nice bunch of people. They're the one who helped me, and we're helping each other in that group to give insights to all this crypto games that can be monetized. So we're like info sharing group, and I really thank them because they're giving me insights on which games to check and reach out to, and that's the reason why we're here. So anyway, moving forward. So, Gods Unchained, Chris. Can you tell me something about Gods Unchained? Who or what inspired you to create this game?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I basically inherited the game, out of its early stages. So, then Fuel Games had originally created their first game called Etherbots, and that was a really interesting experiment in that the entire game was actually on the blockchain. Just playing a game, you're having to pay gas fees that today would be probably insane to get through a single game. But that was sort of their first foray. And as they had wrapped that up, it was looking at the gaming space and being like, what kind of game would fit best, with this sort of crypto, asset ownership model. And, card games came to the fore. So, with me coming on, after they had the sort of the initial prototype and, through the early stages of Genesis in place, it was, for me, in many ways, leaning on my strengths. So, core gameplay is what I focused on first with Gods Unchained as I tried to educate myself, in the crypto space. And, it's been trying to create a list of cards that, provides, a deep possibility space for players to go explore in. And, it's something where we've got a pretty active, community that does explore kind of the edges of it. And you do see the meta shift, even if we haven't necessarily released a balance patch, as people, discover new combinations. And, some of that was intentional too, because what you can see in, a number of crypto games out there is effectively they're bot games. They're simple enough that, it becomes flooded with just bots that are able to sort of click through them. And in the early assessment I had of blockchain is you wanted to make sure that the game rewarded players' skill to sort of avoid some of that core problem. And with Gods Unchained, that was something that I was aiming for, is to make sure that the game was rich enough, deep enough, and allowed players' skill to have a big enough impact that humans would be the ones benefiting rather than bots along the way.
I see. All right. And so, with regards to that, so what makes Gods Unchained different from other e-games or trading card games? And
I'm going to take you into the ER. She cut her thumb.
Oh, no. Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
And life happens.
Yes, it happens. That's fine. What's this? I recall. I think Magic the Gathering is still live on Steam. So with regards to Gods Unchained, what makes it different from any other e-games or other games out there today? What makes it special or stand out with with the other?
To be blunt, like
Yeah.
the unique selling point for Gods is the fact that you can gain control over the cards that you're earning in game. The cards that you purchase are yours, and they sit outside of our control. So like at its foundation, like the crypto element of it, that ownership of assets is unique compared to a lot of the other games in the space. Obviously, because it is one of those things that just makes sense in crypto gaming. We're not the only card game out there. When you look at games like Heartstone or Runeterra or Magic the Gathering, there all are common elements through all of them. And when it comes to Gods Unchained, some of the places that we stand out as different are in our mana unlock system. The way we unlock unevenly over the course of the game stands out. With the God power picking, it basically lets you tailor a little bit on the fly what you're going to do depending on the opponent you're facing. And then one of the places where for me there's a significant difference is in the Sanctum itself. So for those of you who don't know, the Sanctum is effectively like a live sideboard where as you're doing actions in the game, you're earning favor. You can spend favor in the Sanctum to purchase cards out of it. And before the Sanctum was added in, when it came to feel like we had a lot in common with Hearthstone, and the Sanctum is something that has provided us with a lot of flexibility in shifting up the game and in bringing overall balance to the game, particularly because for us, Genesis and Trial of the Gods cards are locked on balance. When we're looking at the overall balance of the game, the core cards, the welcome set cards are still up in the balance. It's a place that we still play. But the Sanctum provides an important relief valve there too for us in that it gives us the ability to look to adjust the meta by providing solves for issues in the meta within the Sanctum. So it's unique, it's different, and as a designer, it definitely provides a lot of extra control, and it's something that is pretty easy to change. So as we move forward, it gives us a lot of possibility space just on how we're going to adjust the game in the future.
I see. All right. And of course, Gods Unchained, the cards there, definitely they are NFTs that, what do you call it? It can be kept. Like it's yours forever, unless of course you decide to sell it to someone else. But aside from the NFT collectibles on the game, is there any crypto coin being generated within the game?
Yeah. So as of today, no.
All right.
But we're not far away from releasing our white paper to cover basically the Gods token that we have announced. Not too far away from the Gods token coming into circulation in general. This is one of those places where I have to mea culpa a bit. I have lagged us behind here a little bit in that there was a lot of focus from me on the core gameplay to start, and in building out some of these elements that I do believe are really important to the overall ecosystem of crypto gaming. Gods token is coming, but is not live today, and the getting the token in there, it is kind of like one of the words or phrases I say a lot is possibility space. And for the possibility space of something, it's like it's that grand room in which you can go play with something. And for crypto gaming, the tokenization of effectively a premium currency and what that can do is one of the richest places to go play in. Like it's where we're going to see, I think, the most innovation over the next decade plus as people figure out just what can be done with it. That's something I'm really excited to being so close to starting to realize and get to play with along with our community.
Indeed. It's interesting times, and of course, I think that's where the gaming industry is shifting to anyway. Everything will be what do you call this? Tokenized, crypto coins, then NFT collectibles, because especially NFT, because you get to keep it forever to you. So that's really something really special. Imagine like those games way back in the 80s, 90s. After you play the game, that's just it. You go back to zero if you want to start it again. So like whatever you have accomplished will just disappear, and now everything can be saved in the crypto space.
Yeah, and it is again like part of the reason why I was so excited to join a couple of years ago. The number of things that can happen there because the NFTs are controlled by players and they can choose what to do with them. I mean, I harken back to like the robber baron era in the United States, where oil companies are maliciously targeting each other with not always legal acts. But it's like with NFTs, it is one of those really interesting things where it's like, hey, if another card game is coming into the space, if we could be like, hey, you're playing, other card game A, look, take your NFTs over to Gods Unchained. We'll make them do really cool things. We'll allow you to trade them in for Gods cards, whatever. Like you can provide utility to other games NFTs within your own to effectively pull other games audiences over. And even in some ways, it's like when you look at the scale of some big gaming companies, like I forget exactly where it was at in EA's last annual report, but they spent somewhere around $600 million on marketing alone. It's like if they decided to come into the space, they could effectively we don't want Gods Unchained to have an easy time. They could just buy up all of the Genesis and Trials cards and isolate them off too. Like there are some challenges and possibilities, like just because players can freely move their NFTs around, that I don't think have been fully explored yet, that we're going to get to see some newsworthy events happen in the coming years.
Yeah, indeed. So anyway, before we proceed, so guys, I'm seeing some questions here, but we will address them on later. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask it in the chat. And again, I'd like to welcome everyone who's tuning in, and welcome also to Horeb and the creators of Wealth, MSI Philippines, MSI Taiwan, and MSI Middle East is also tuning in. So thank you guys. Thank you for always supporting us. And Floy and the TGFI group, Pinoy Gamers Middle East, and my high school batchmates. I think they're really tuning in now, reminiscing our old game that we're so addicted about. So moving forward, regarding the gameplay, Chris, can you tell us about the gameplay mechanics of Gods Unchained?
Yeah, so we already covered those a little bit. With Gods Unchained, you're building your deck. You're going into the game with that. At the start of each match, you're mulliganing. Essentially, what that term means is you get an opening hand of cards, and you can basically choose to send specific cards in that opening hand back and get new ones out of your deck to try and improve your opening hand. Once you enter the match, depending on who goes first or second, sort of balance out the going first advantage. Each player has 1 if you're going first, 3 if you're going second, bag of tricks, which allow you to unlock and get additional mana, sort of accelerate your play. Players take turns where they perform their actions, flip their turn over to let their opponent play. In the gameplay itself, you can cast spells. You can cast relics, which basically are equipped to your god. You can use those relics to attack other creatures, perform certain actions. You can summon creatures into the game with cards. Other element that we already covered was the god powers. So at the start of the match, you pick from one of 3 god powers. There are also cards within the game that can replace those god powers for others. As the match progresses, you unlock additional mana. Once you get to 5 mana, mana starts unlocking more slowly. It goes all the way to 9. As you get up in mana, obviously the cards get more powerful. Sometime around 5 mana, you're probably getting to the point where through killing your opponent's creatures, through damaging your opponent, you're going to get enough favor to go play in the Sanctum. The Sanctum allows you to spend that favor to gain additional cards. So making good choices there. It's double-edged. 1, is it benefiting to you? 2, you're looking at the Sanctum and being like, oh, my opponent might want to go buy that card. Let me buy it out from under them so that they don't get access to it. Ultimately, somewhere along the line, somebody's going to run out of life. When you bring your opponent down to 0 life, they will be defeated. One of the other sort of interesting mechanics is when you run out of cards in your deck, effectively, at the end of your turn, you'll take damage based on the amount of mana you have left. So if you've got no cards left to draw, but you're able to spend it, you either through activating your god power or with the cards you have remaining in hand, you're not going to take any damage. If you literally run out of all actions, you'll take damage for each point of mana that is remaining, and that sort of draws the game to the conclusion. Does that give you a good overview?
Yes, 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 indeed. Actually, I was watching it last night. Some of its gameplay, so I'm just trying to match it out. But yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, I want to get my hands on it.
Yeah, and
Um,
one of the other things that I would say, like philosophically, that's a little bit different for us compared to some
mm,
games I've worked on in the past, because of our sort of like decentralized, philosophy. We also have fairly open APIs with our data. So, one of the sites that developed up around the game is GODS, and the amount of information that they have over there that they've sort of processed and share is truly impressive. They've got information there on the current state of the meta, which decks have the highest win rates, what the win rates are for cards. And as a developer, it is one of those double-edged swords because it gives players enough tools that they can solve the meta faster than if they didn't have access to all the data. But it also keeps us honest in that if there are issues, imbalance, players are going to see that, not just in their play, but they can also point to the data and be like, look over here, this card's busted, and I can prove it. And that's really great. And I think what that's allowed us to do is overall our balance is pretty tight. We try to keep the win rate for gods between like the 55 and 45% range. And most of the time we're able to do that. And when it drifts out, we can issue balance patches to sort of bring it back into line.
I see. Yeah. So that's really good. I mean, well, one of the best thing also about it is that since everything can be, there's a live feedback on things, so actions can quickly be, taken when there's like uh, issues
Yeah,
or
I would say at
need some
times our players
improvement.
probably think we don't take action quite quickly enough. Sometimes that is just development, but it's certainly one of those things that we try to be as responsive as we can. It is a mix of, as a developer, you're often working forward on often quite pricey, complicated, and expensive things, and it
Indeed.
is a trade-off of doing the quick fixes or investing in those big projects.
Yes, that's correct. And also, of course, the game is still on its early stages, so those inputs really helps a lot on where the game could further develop. So it's really an interesting idea that it gives what do you call this? It gives power to the players. At the same time, it gives also that immediate analysis for the game developers. Yeah.
True, true.
Yeah. So now, earlier you were mentioning about the plans that right now it's not yet there, but there are plans to tokenize, like creating its own coin for the game. But uh, on its stage right now, what do you think, or what is the play to earn aspect of the game? Of course, everybody's here to play and enjoy, but also we come to factor in that monetizing aspect of the game. So at its stage right now, what is the play to earn aspects? Like how
Yeah,
much can yes, sorry.
yeah. I would say like at the beginning, I would call our play to earn sort of in its infancy still.
Mm-hmm.
Like over the past stretch, so like where has our play to earn been? I think a lot of it has been focused on our weekend ranked event. So effectively what that has been is whatever set we're currently selling, each weekend you can play in a weekend ranked event where your first 25 games in that event matter. It also, if you're in like the top 10 of overall play at the mythic level, it matters. And depending on how you do over the course of the event, you're either winning core packs or you're winning premium packs of the set that we're currently selling. And the monetization there is somewhat erratic in that depending on the packs you open, you might open up cards that don't necessarily have a high price point. On a given weekend, you've effectively earned, in many cases, hundreds of dollars worth of packs. But when it comes to like that throughput monetization, it's like then you've got to take the cards from that, go over to the marketplace and sell them. And then again, that's variable. Some people might get lucky. They open up a diamond legendary card, and that can sell for thousands of dollars. Some other people less. At the moment with weekend ranked, players who are playing it now are getting their core packs, but they're earning packs towards the next set, the next expansion set. So in some ways, it's like earning towards the future, which you've got to have some of that more ant versus the cricket who's playing long-term view towards it. The other aspect, which I know has been a point of frustration for some of our players, is in 2019 we activated the Forge. So with the core cards, you can earn core cards from the core set through playing. As you play, you earn experience, and you earn packs of the core cards. We never actually sell any of the core collection. So the loan access to like purchasing core cards is from players who, at the time, while the Forge was active, when gas was cheap, were able to basically fuse 2 of their non-chain cards, so basically their plain shine cards, and turn them into meteorite cards. Meteorite cards are the most basic cards on the blockchain. And in the not too distant future, we're looking to reactivate the Forge. So that will be another component of play to earn, of getting core cards through winning games and ranks. You earn flux, and you use the flux and the core cards to basically get them onto the blockchain, and you can sell those. So like the avenues into sort of play to earn at the moment would be weekend ranked. What's coming online is the token itself. It will be the Forge and fusing core cards onto the blockchain. And then the other element, we do support player hosted tournaments. So there are other places in the community where you can go and participate in tournaments. Other long-standing challenge for me is with Genesis, we got together a portion of the pack sales, which ended up being about $570,000 for a world tournament. For me, to achieve the world tournament successfully, we've got to hit a certain level of stability for the game and polish that we have not quite yet hit yet. But it is on our roadmap to run that event as well. And having that sort of war chest of that prize pool is something I know I'm looking forward to running. It's certainly been longer than many would like, but we're getting there.
Yeah, indeed. Well, that's really something to look forward to. But speaking of that, since you were mentioning about the Forge, so I think that answers the question of there was a question here from Dennis. So it's in the pipeline, but there's no specific date yet for reactivating the Forge. And later on, guys, we'll be talking about Immutable X. I'll be asking some questions to Chris about it. So moving forward. I was checking the website earlier, and it says it's free to play. But I do understand that there's still an aspect there where you need a small amount of capital to invest if you want to play Gods Unchained on, you know, sometimes like me, for example, I don't want to start on the basic level, so I need to invest something on. So speaking of that, how much capital do you think uh, someone like me would need, or anyone
So
who wants to start playing it?
it really
To play the game?
depends. So one of the things I know you can go to YouTube on, and some of our players have done more than once, is
Mhm.
when looking at the balance of the game, one of my frustrations with game design as a player is when there's a paywall. Like it's that point you hit where like if you do not pay, you can no longer progress, or the progression is slow to the extent where it's just like it's absolutely brutal. It's a quit point. So like when we were designing Gods Unchained, looking at the welcome set cards, so everybody starts with the full welcome set and everyone can earn the core cards. It was looking at, for players who decided to be free to play, who just have those cards, can they get up to Mythic? Mythic is our highest level of play. And if you are a skilled player, you will be able to get to Mythic with just the core and welcome cards. If you have access to the Genesis cards or the Trials cards as sort of like the premium cards, you will absolutely increase your win percentage. There's no question of that. But it is a question of scale. Like having great Genesis and core cards isn't going to take your win rate up to 99%. Like depending on your skill, it can have more or less of an impact, but it isn't a foregone conclusion. So if you just have core cards and welcome cards, will you always lose against somebody who has Trials and Genesis? Absolutely not. And there are even some decks in that sort of core welcome mix that you can take advantage of your opponent having really good cards in their deck. So I don't think there is a minimum buy-in to be competitive. And I think that's been proven not just by us, but by players in our community. Some of it is, how much, would you need to invest? So like, I think I would even almost pass the buck on that to be like, if you go to GUDex and you go to their, meta analysis, you can actually look at the current decks in the meta and see, how much in ETH each of those would cost. And it is variable. Like some of those meta decks are going to be much cheaper. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in like the like $60 range. Some of them can be stupidly expensive. So you could have a deck that if it has a whole bunch of Demogorgons in it and other rare cards, it could go up potentially into the thousands. But some of that too is like those are meta decks that are in the mix for the top of the meta, and there are meta decks that aren't incredibly expensive to go out and get. And some of that just goes to when setting up the economy too, and like why I needed Immutable X is with the distribution of the cards. I had pegged it at like, I would love a lot of our cards to be in like the 20, 30, 40 cent range. If you're just looking for the utility side, yes, if you've got the diamond, sort of legendary card, those can be not just utility, but also incredibly rare, and they can be in the thousands of dollars, or into some of the few mythic cards, which can be even more. But even there, the mythic cards aren't win more cards. The mythic cards are novelty cards, in that they're not for competitive play. They're not like if you've got that mythic card, you're going to win. It is sort of about the uniqueness and rarity of those cards. So like if you don't have anything to spend, don't have that stop you from coming to play, because as I talked about that cycle, like even with a deck just of core and welcome cards, you can participate in weekend ranked. You can then earn packs, of just not just the core, but of the the future X2 set, and like you can get into the flow of it all on your own.
Correct. And I think I can attest on that. Guys, just to bottom line, what he was trying to say is that it all boils down to skills and how you strategize your gameplay. Being a card player myself before, it's like that. Even if my friends, my gameplay opponents have those rare and expensive cards, if you don't know how to strategize your gameplay, it's not gonna matter at all. So it will really boil down to how you will make your strategy. So that's the fun of it. Actually, this is the fun of playing card games. So uh, speaking of playing, so for sure, I have some members in the community that might be playing crypto game for the very first time. This might be their first game ever to play. So what would I need to open or start in order to play Gods Unchained? What accounts should I be opening or setting up to start
So
playing?
that is, I guess, the other advantage of Gods Unchained, and that at its most basic, you're going to have to register, you're going to have to download the Immutable Launcher, and get in and play your games. So at its most basic, the registration process isn't more arduous than your typical sort of free-to-play game. Beyond that, though, this is the part of me that as a former mainstream game developer, I'm like, and this is where it gets complicated, because when you have that decentralized ownership of assets, it comes at a cost, and that cost is the complexity of wallets and all that entails. So if you're looking to actually participate in the overall ecosystem, you're going to have to go sign up for a wallet. We suggest MetaMask. So you're getting a MetaMask extension for your browser. You're creating a MetaMask account, creating a wallet. There, you're taking that wallet ID and linking it to your GU account, and ultimately also linking that to Immutable X. And at that stage, you've completed all of the sort of fundamental linking of things. But if you want to then enter the ecosystem with your own money, you're going to be needing to get ETH into that wallet. At that point, you're going to a third-party site like Coinbase. You're linking, going through all the KYC there,
Yes.
depositing money into Coinbase, transferring it from Coinbase, the ETH then that you bought in Coinbase, over to your MetaMask wallet. Ultimately, from in MetaMask, you're then transferring from L1, which is the primary Ethereum network, into L2, which is Immutable X. And at that point, when you're in the Immutable X ecosystem, then it becomes pretty easy. So one of the big advantages of Immutable X, why we spent all this time, working on it, is there is that flow of assets in and out. So, the ETH you've brought in, you can export back out. Again, like compared to some of the instantaneous things you can get with mainstream gaming when it's all centralized, these actions can take a chunk of time because we're going back to the L1 network. But why we have the L2 network there is it solves a lot of the scale issues, like a lot of the problems you're hearing about in the mainstream space of, just like environmental cost. Like for one transaction on mainnet, we can do effectively like 600,000 transactions on L2. So it means that players can trade, the 20, 30, 40 cent cards on L2 without gas fees, whereas trading that 20-cent card on L1, maybe you're paying, I'd have to check gas today, but it could be $30 to transact that card, and it doesn't make any sense.
Correct.
So like, obviously, from that description, it's like there's a lot. It's why there's sort of tutorials and walkthroughs to help people through it all. And I think it's important to admit that it's a little bit scary. I know when I went through it for the first time a couple of years ago, like it was a huge learning process. And at each stage, just like, do I have my address correct? Am I properly, linking it through? And there are hard lessons to be learned in the space. I moved my family from Seattle, Washington, to Sydney, and we left with 9 suitcases and we arrived with 8. And the 8th suitcase had 2 of my hard drives and both of my GeForce very expensive video cards. And importantly, it had my hard drive that had my wallet passcode on it. So that wallet is gone forever. And, it had a couple of ETH in it, and it had all my GODS Unchained cards. And it's like, that was an important lesson for me to experience, as somebody creating this ecosystem, because it's like real life. Like it isn't, in a centralized system, if somebody loses their stuff, I can just go and recreate it. But like all of the Genesis cards that will ever be created have been created. Like if you lose your wallet, like I did with those cards in it, those cards are gone for good. Like I can't, even me as the game director for GU, like I can't go remint my cards. They're truly gone. And, it is it does bring power to the system as a whole, I believe, to have the things be decentralized and have it in players' hands. But it's also important to recognize that those things are in players' hands, and if you lose access to it, it's gone. So, you've got to treat it like a precious physical, object.
Correct. So I think that's the pros and cons of having it in the metaverse, because at the end of the day, especially if that particular card or asset is just one and you're the only one having it, if it's lost, and that's it. I mean, that's really gone.
It is one of the hardest choices I think we ever made. We had with our very first draw, the Tethys Mythic. Somebody won it. We had the wallet ID of the person who won it, but they never responded to us. We looked at the activity on that wallet, and even though it won it, like all their activity across the ecosystem had stopped. And it's like, do we mint the card to this wallet that it looks like is dead, or do we re-raffle it? And it was really just one of these philosophical questions. And ultimately, we minted it to the wallet. And I do believe for all eternity, Tethys is lost to the world effectively. And why do that then? And some of it is because we can confirm that they won. So we went forward with it. And by the rules at the time, we stuck to them. We did modify it so that for this latest one, we made sure that the person who was going to claim it had to like literally contact us and let us know, yes, I am real, send it over. Luckily, that happened all smoothly. So lessons learned along the way. But yeah, some of those decisions are hard, and
Indeed, yes. And
it's like the
of
baseball
course,
cards of owned, where it's like there's only one of these left in the universe. Everything else has been destroyed.
correct. Yeah, but it's also a security feature. It means it just justifies that it cannot be faked. It cannot be, forged or something. You have it, and that's it. Nobody can replicate it, and that is really something special. Of course, at the end of the day, there are really pros and cons on things. So that's just,
And it is one of the complexities that I think the industry as a whole is sorting out, because like one of the other hard decisions we had to make for Gods Unchained is like, do we do a side chain like so many have chosen to do, or do we go for this, I think harder route of creating an L2 like we have for Immutable X? And some of it for me came down to like, I like to sleep at night, and with a lot of the sidechain solutions, you have a handful of people who control that network, and that would be harder for me, knowing that all of the players' cards are within the hands of a few people who could essentially collude to take over the network. That's a hard one. And with Immutable X being backed by L1, makes me sleep just a little bit easier at night. It was definitely a lot more work.
Yeah, well, anyway, the hard part is just on the beginning. Once everything gets settled, everything's gonna be easy, and people's lives will be easy.
I tell you what, I'm looking forward to it being easy, because it's still not easy. Like, blockchain changes so fast, and like that, like more so than to traditional development. Like, we've had to rebuild things, like things that had been solved. Like we're having issues with opening the original L1 chests because they're still minting their assets to L1, and then we've got to carry them over into L2, and it's like the problems are just harder than when I was working in sort of like centralized space. And you've got to be so much more careful, because once you mint those things, they're real and they're outside of your control. So we're still a ways away from it being easy, I think, but we are getting through, and making progress along the way.
I see. All right. And talking about Immutable X, so yesterday I was googling it, watching some videos, and I think some games also, like I think Illuvium is also embracing the Immutable X technology, and understanding that the Ethereum blockchain is really notorious about its gas fees. So can you tell us more about how Immutable X comes into picture, and how it gets to be a lifesaver for most of the players?
Yeah, I mean, I could say for me, the number of transactions, and I can't recall it right off the top of my head, but like, we've had so many more transactions on Immutable X than we ever did on L1 without the gas fee challenge. Like, I can say from personal experience, not too long ago, I was looking at getting a trinket that I had technically earned, but couldn't receive as a member of Immutable. I was one of the Hydras, and it was totally within my price range. And I was going to go buy it for about $100, and the gas fee costs to purchase it were around 150. And I'm like paying that much more just to transfer the object, like I just couldn't justify it. And then with Immutable X, it's like you can go transfer any of the cards right now, and you're doing that without any gas fees. Fees are in the work, so taking a very small percentage on transactions is sort of on the way to just help cover the overall costs of the network. But again, compared to some of the existing gas fees, quite minimal, especially with how those will work in the greater ecosystem overall. And some of it was we just didn't want to build it for ourselves. Like, this is something that we felt would benefit games that are crypto games today, or people looking to create crypto games and other crypto experiences in the future. So it is setting up Immutable X to be accessible by others, and to some extent, it is creating those sort of network effects of, if it's just you there, it's like, okay, that's fine. But if we can have lots of other games playing in the space, I think just helps everyone else in that sort of metaverse ecosystem. And it looks like I've lost you, and I don't know if that's on my side or your side. Let's see if I can get him to type in chat, and maybe I can keep monologuing. Please bear with us as we work through these technical difficulties. Yay, technology. Aha! You're back. You're moving.
Ah, well, I never lost you. You were live actually, so it's I don't know what happened there, but anyway, yeah. Let's just move forward.
Yeah, no worries.
Technology. It's like imperfections of technology. So, anyway, I have someone gave some insights here. He was saying that maybe in the future, there would be books for the lore of Gods Unchained. Yeah, something maybe that they can conceptualize in the future.
Yeah, and yeah, on that note, it's been fun working with the team on building out the lore of Gods Unchained. A lot of the initial development was done by Thea Davis, and Kelly Diggs. Kelly Diggs, somebody from Magic as well, and I think did a good job of sort of tying together the basics of the universe, and what it lets us do sort of moving forward is going to be fun. We've got sort of space to explore long into the future. I do think there is always some danger of when you novelize sort of game IPs that it's almost like the reverse when you take movies and turn them into games. Like it's not necessarily the ripest area for success, but yeah, certainly possible.
I see. Yes, that's in. So that was really interesting, and well, I'd be honest. I really want to get my hands on this game. I want to start playing it. It reminds me of if I wanted to play again. So speaking of this game, I know it's still on its early stages. I do feel watching all those YouTube videos and the gameplays. I know it has a lot of you know promising uh, aspects in it, and this will really go a long way. And knowing Gods Unchained, that this is a trading card and a card battle game, but how do you plan to evolve this game and to become more exciting to players? What's in the pipeline for the future of Gods Unchained?
Yeah, so like philosophically, this is one of those challenges of being sort of in the startup space, in that in developing the team, in developing the project, at times you're making the choice to like do what's going to carry you through today so you can grow in tomorrow. And like one of the big things I'm working on right now is in growing the team. You can sort of see on the middle website, we've got lots of roles open, looking to bring in additional leaders to help bolster the strength, of our development, because that's something that we can definitely improve on. In the game itself, I think, beyond some of the other things that are already on the docket, one of the big initiatives that has been driven, by others on the team itself is improving what I would call like the first 15 minutes of gameplay. So, one of the things that, you do in game development is every once in a while you take a step back, you try and reset your brain, and you look at everything, with fresh eyes. And in doing that, there are pieces of our first 15 minutes that are far more clunky than they need to be, and prevent players from sort of getting into the core experience. And I can say with some confidence that smoothing out that first 15 minutes of gameplay is up there on the priority list, particularly because what we find is once people have made it through the first couple of games, they tend to stick around. So we want to make sure people get to that first game. And on that sticking around part, as we look at this Gods token and, the rest of the sort of play and earn economy, it's extending the game's motivations for like playing that next day, like playing game to game, playing moment to moment in the game. I think we're already pretty strong. Certainly areas that we're going to continue to improve, but like a lot of it is what is that day-to-day cycle. One of my sort of desires with lifestyle games is that players are able to progress nicely with about 3 days a week played. I find that if players feel like they have to play every single day to sort of maximize the game's benefits, from a free-to-play game in terms of what they're earning in a free-to-play or in a play-to-earn. If it is a daily grind, that is something that is unsustainable. At some point, no matter what the benefits, people are going to balance off. So it is finding our own balance of when we're distributing GODS tokens for play, what is the requirements? Like, how do we make it maintainable so that people are having fun, but they're not grinding themselves to death? And that's a place where the space as a whole is going to have to iterate to make sure that the acquiring of assets, the ability to earn is maintainable, and keeps the fun around. I think the other aspect there is like, where's the game continuing to grow? We do have some things that are almost there, but not quite. And this is always one of those really frustrating things as developer. Like, we had sealed deck on the PTR, and it was almost there. Like, I know players had fun, but it also wasn't quite right. And if we had launched it onto the live servers, it was going to cause some overall issues. So it's sort of like back on the back burner again, as we deal with some other hot pressing issues. But like, getting some of those spun back up to expand just the types of play that people can have. Because one of the great things about limited play modes is you don't have to have that massive collection. Like, you can go into a limited play mode. The playing field isn't perfectly fair because of randomness there. Some people are going to have better pools, but it's also a great sort of introduction into overall play. And I think like longer term, when we're talking to look at like 3 or 4 years plus down the line, some of it is just even a metaverse within GODS Unchained itself. Like, whether that's the cliche of today, which is like adding an auto battler, it's extending the use of some of those GODS Unchained cards and bringing them into other genres and building up, I think, GODS Unchained as a whole, so that you can choose to engage and play in multiple different ways. And there are lots of unanswered questions there on that side, but also a lot of room to grow.
Indeed. And also, I'd like to second you on what you mentioned, that first things first. I mean, games, they're meant to be enjoyed. And yeah, it's unhealthy if like you need to grind for long hours just for you to be able to at the end of the day, what matters here is that first you get to understand the game. You need to enjoy it, because if you're not enjoying the game and you're just playing it for the grind, then you're destroying the purpose of uh, being in the system. I think that's what matters, and that's what we're telling our community also, that uh, they don't need to rush. There's plenty of games out there, but what's important is which among these games would you really like to play, and which among these games would you really like to understand, because that's the first step on things. Try to understand and learn the game, try to master it, because mastery comes along as you play it, and that's where you get to enjoy it, and the monetization aspect comes second only. It's
Yeah,
important that you get to really play and enjoy it.
yeah, and I know it is semantics, but yeah, I guess one of the things I learned in my time at Wizards is language does matter, and being specific about language is important. And I know that there are times when I could still improve mine, but some of it comes down to, like, largely right now, a lot of language is play to earn. And I think for me, like, I've used that language too, because yeah, it made sense to an extent. But I have started thinking about it differently in my own mind to help recenter myself, which is like, my goal isn't play to earn. My goal is play and earn. That's where I started, and it's where I'm trying to sort of, in some ways, bring my heart back to, where ultimately, like, when I came to join the GODS Unchained team, I wanted players to play. Like, I wanted to create a game where players came in and enjoyed themselves and earned. Like, they earned control of their cards. And in the crypto space right now, I think a lot of the focus is on the earn aspects. And to be fair, to compete, we're going to have to go there too. But if the focus just is on the earn, ultimately, this is not what is going to take crypto into mainstream gaming. Like, gaming does not exist to earn. Like, and it's a many billion-dollar industry just with play. I think everything in the ecosystem can be healthier than it is today, though, in in that flow of like the players benefiting along with the growth of the game, and the players earning control over their assets and their accounts. But yeah, I don't think the balance is right today. So if you're not seeing anything out there that is exciting for you to play, yeah, I do believe that's coming. And I think we do run a danger of bouncing a lot of mainstream people off play to earn, when to them it just looks like, oh, like the reason for this to exist is just for me to grind to earn money. And a lot of gamers, that's not why they game. If they wanted to just earn money, or hell, for me, if I just wanted to earn money, I would have gone into banking. Like, let's be honest here. Like being a director of baking software development, a little bit more lucrative overall than gaming, but that's not why I'm in gaming. Like, gaming for me has always been about those moments of joy that people experience and the connections that you can make while gaming with others, in the community as a whole.
Yeah, and I think this is a really very interesting quote that you said, and I think I'm gonna adapt this on my future sessions. I really like the idea: play and earn, not play to earn. I think that's the best part of it. And also, before anything else, I would like to say thank you to Samara. Samara, without her, this is not gonna happen. So thank you very much, Samara, for linking me to Chris, and we're having this session. So it's really fun and interesting. I'm learning a lot about Gods Unchained and what comes next in the future for crypto gaming as a whole. So that being said, just to summarize things up, so I'd like to relay this information to everyone. Uh, Crypto gaming, play and earn aspect of a lot of games in the crypto universe is still on its infancy stage. There's still a lot of games that are coming, and the existing games right now, they still have a lot of things to develop. So there's a lot of future in many games, and we're really living in a very what do you call it? This is the best era in our lives, because before there's nothing like this. It's like family computer Nintendo. You just get to play the game. After turning it off, then it's like you're back to zero. But now games are, you get to keep a lot of things that you earned or you have gained during your gameplay. So this is something very significant, especially if you're the type of gamer that when you accomplish something, you get to keep it forever. That's like, this is my accomplishment, something like that.
Yeah, and I think the other part here that I think has been lost on some people, but I can say from the other side, it's crystal clear to me, is in traditional free-to-play gaming, one of the things you'll see when developers do something that players don't like, the response that they have is like, well, I'm not going to buy anything more. And in the concept of trapped value, I can say with full honesty that the game developer doesn't care. If you're at the point where you're like, I'm not going to buy anymore, they're like, you already bought something and it's trapped within your account. Like, if you leave, great, I got the money I was going to get from you. I'll go, advertise on Reddit and go find somebody new. And there is this imbalance of power, because ultimately all the consumer can do is walk. And I'm not saying that that's not has some strength, but with crypto gaming, one of the things it does adjust is that overall level of power, because it's not just, you have pissed me off and I'm gonna leave. It's, yeah, you've pissed me off and I'm selling all of my assets. And I tell you what, a gaming developer is really gonna care if the marketplace is completely flooded with assets and the core parts of their economy are no longer working. Like, if people, because we don't have our token yet, I can't say it, but like for Axios, like, if for some reason people are pissed off and they're like, nobody is going to buy SLP anymore, it's like the game developer is going to care about why they're pissed off and they're going to fix it. Like, it does change the balance between the players and the builders, but I do think in a good way. And it's going to take adjustment, because it's not something that the industry overall is used to. And yeah, it's one of those things that I'm like, oh God, I'm going to be that person having to deal with an unhappy community and then having the power to make me actually do something. But at the same time, it's like making sure that developers are truly listening. And like one of the ways that one of my fellow developers put it is, the emotions are real. The cause and solutions aren't always necessarily the right ones, but acknowledging that when players are having emotional responses to the game, like that's what gaming does. Like it triggers emotional responses, and you need to be willing to listen to that. And I think for a lot of developers out there, they just don't necessarily do that, and that's one of the benefits I see of crypto gaming coming sort of into the mainstream of fixing some of that imbalance of power over it, because in crypto gaming, the players own the game far more than they do in sort of a free-to-play space, in my opinion.
Yeah, the traditional ones. Yes, I definitely agree. And of course, it gives that you know fruitful fruitful relationship between the players and the game does, because at the end of the day, when the players are trying to relay a message about uh, an imperfection in a game, so it gives insights like, hey, we really like the game, but let's try to improve this aspect so it can be more fun. So that's the best part of it, I think. And of course, that what makes game evolve and become more what's the term, successful. It becomes more successful because in improvements are being seen in a almost real time basis. So when players get to see those, and the feeling of if I'm the player and I saw something that is wrong in the game and the developers listened, it's really a good accomplishment for me personally. Like, hey, these people are really listening. So I'm just gonna continue on and play the game, enjoy it. If I find something else, I'm gonna tell them because I think they're really listening. So, it's a good relationship in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing that's to me, I got my very first start in gaming development in mods, working on maps and mods for Quake 2 way back in the day, and for a long time, that relationship has been very much been like the mod makers. They help the game succeed, but they often see very little benefit from it. And like in this crypto gaming space, it's like if people are building mods for a project, there's so much more potential for them, to benefit, in the overall ecosystem. Like if you have a token, it's like, hey, this mod is really popular. Like as part of the community distribution, it's like, yeah, we're rewarding this incredibly popular mod with some of our token distribution. It's the ability for people to extend onto the overall game's functionality. Like one of the things that I would love to build that I expect somebody else might get there first is you talk about like rental libraries, where it's like, I've got a huge collection of cards, I've got multiple duplicates. It's like, I'm going to put a bunch of my cards into a rental pool, and players can rent cards out from that pool to go play games or in like weekend ranked. And because of the nature of blockchain and smart contracts, you can do that trustlessly. Like you don't have to worry about the person returning it because the smart contract can make sure it goes back. Like there's all of this potential space, even beyond what we can do in these sort of decentralized systems, that as the community and the technology matures, like I expect to see things that I couldn't quite even imagine be built upon it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So it's really very interesting conversation. So there you go, guys. If you, I think we did address the
Have we
questions
gone
that
over
we have
everything?
here. Sorry.
I was like, we've gone over all the
Ah,
questions. Any questions
yes.
from people that are watching that I could answer?
I think they have asked. I think we have answered the questions that have been asked earlier. So again, Chris, thank you very much for gracing us with your time. And guys, again, for the team replay, don't worry, you're gonna be able to watch this, and hopefully, uh, Gods Unchained is something that you're gonna put in your radar. Because for me, well, personally, I'm really into this. The moment I found out that it has a resemblance on the game that I really loved to play during my high school days, there's no question asked. I'm gonna be in this game later. So thank you very much again, Chris.
Cheers. It
And
was a pleasure.
yes, and Samara also, thank you very much.
Yes,
So
thank you, Samara.
guys, tune in again next week for another session of Gaming Monetized, but still it's gonna be a surprise. For today, thank you very much and have a great Friday, everyone. Thank you, Chris.
Cheers, cheers. Yeah, bye-bye.
Cheers.
blood, gore, bone, tears. These are the only currencies I accept for debts owed. Your crown will make a fine addition to my collection.